last year. So, first of all, the word, percent. Okay, and the symbol, which you all know, which is the little 0 with the forward slash and the little 0. So, can anyone tell me what percent means? Does anyone know which language it comes from? Yes, very good. Cent means 100. It's from the Latin centum, which means 100, which is why there are 100 cents in a dollar. Okay, and what does per mean? Sort of, yeah. It means for every, for each, or for every. And they're both from Latin, okay? So, what it means, a percentage is something out of or for every 100, okay? So if you've got 3%, that means that 3 out of every 100 is counted. If you've got 92%, it means that 92 out of every 100 is counted, okay? So what we're going to look at now, though, is how to convert between the percentages, fractions, and decimals. Okay, so I want you to, you can use colours for this. I want you to draw this infographic for me. So we're going to we'll have fractions at the top. Have percent here. And we'll have decimals here. So they are obviously our 3 ways of describing a part of something in maths. Fraction is expressed obviously as a numerator over a denominator, a decimal with a decimal point, and a percentage with a percentage sign, but they're all linked. So you need to draw some arrows going from one to the other and back. Like that, okay? So obviously this one is fractions to decimals is that one, decimals to fractions is that one, fractions to percents, percents to fractions, decimals to percentages, and percentages back to decimals. Because they're all kind of inextricably linked, really. Okay. So let's start with what we already know, the decimals and fractions. How do you convert a fraction to a decimal? Well done. So it's the numerator divided by the denominator. Okay, and you would mostly use a calculator for that. Now this decimals to fractions is a little bit more complicated. What does it depend on? What you do depends on what? If you've got a decimal to a fraction, what does it depend on? How many decimal places it's got? So for instance, if you've got 0.3, which has got 1 decimal place, 0.35 and 0.565, okay? We'll only go up to thousands. But what you do with those decimals is different depending on the place value. So if you've got a decimal with 1 decimal place, what will the numerator of the fraction be? We've all gone to sleep over the holidays. What will the denominator of the fraction be? 10, that's right. Did I say numerator? Yes. Oh, it's my fault then. It's my fault, not yours. I've gone to sleep over the holidays. Okay, 0.35, what will the denominator of the fraction be? 100, yeah, because it's 35 hundredths, isn't it? Okay, and then 0.565? 1,000. Hope you're writing this down, Matt.
Yes.
Now, they are all fine, but what do I need to do to them? Simplify them if possible. So 35 over 100 is 7/20ths, and 565 over 1,000. How many fives in? Well, it's going to be something over 200, isn't it? It's going to be 113 over 200. Because there's 100 in 500, 100 fives, and then 13 in 65. So 113 over 200. So that's what you do. So from a decimal to a fraction, count the place value, put the decimal over the correct denominator and simplify. Okay, decimals to a percentage. What do you do for that? So say you've got something like 0.35. What do you do to get from a decimal to a percentage?
You multiply it by 100.
Well done, you multiply by 100, that's right. So that's obviously 35%. What about from a percent to a decimal? It's the inverse, isn't it?
Divided by 100.
Divided by 100, that's right. Divided by 100. So this one you multiply by 100, and this one you divide by 100. So say, for instance, you've got 36%. If you divide that by 100, it will be 0.36 as a decimal. Okay. Fractions to percentages, percentages to fractions. What about a fraction to a percentage? Now, this one, you do it every single time I give you a test back that isn't out of 100. Okay, so a fraction to a percentage, what do you do?
Do you do the numerator divided by the denominator and times by?
Well done, very good. It's the numerator. Oh no, I need to write that on the inside, don't I? Sorry. Yeah, it's the numerator divided by the denominator multiplied by 100. Okay, so if you got 36 out of 42 in a test, you would do 36 divided by 42 multiplied by 100. Okay, and then a percentage to a fraction.
Divide it by 100.
Put it over 100. That's right. You would give it you would put the percentage over 100, and then, as always with fractions, what would you do?
Simplify.
Simplify. That's right. So, say for instance you've got 66%. You would do 66 over 100 because it's over 100, and then simplify to 33 over 50. Okay. So is all of that? Do you all remember that from last year?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, a couple of things that you do need to know though. GST. Now, GST is what's known as a goods and service tax. Okay? And does anyone know what percentage the goods and service tax is? It is 10%, well done. So, what that means is that, for instance, when someone goes to Jordell's dad and wants them to build them a house, there's a cost for the house, and then GST is added because it's considered a luxury item. If you go to Coles or Woolies or Aldi and do your shopping, if you look on the receipt, there will be two amounts given. There will be the amount, the GST, and the total. Does anyone know how GST works? No. Okay. So what happens is it's a tax that is collected by companies or people or individuals, and then it's paid to the government. So if you go and buy something for $500, for instance, if then the GST was added, you'd add 10% on. So the cost of that item would be $550. The person who sold you the item would get $500, and the government would get the 50, okay, because it's a tax. So it's on all kinds of things. And if you're the end user, because businesses can claim it back, but if you're the person at the end buying the service, you have to pay the GST and you can't claim it back. So when we built our house, GST was like, oh no, more, you know, you kind of think you've got to spend, I don't know, $7,000 on your fences, but actually it's going to be 7,700 exactly. So if you're building a house that costs $400,000 and there's GST on everything, 40 grand, it's a lot of money. Okay, so GST, that's GST. Now, when else do we use percentages? Can you give me some examples of in life when we use percentages?
When you mark a test and you get your test results.
Absolutely, test results, well done.
Like 50% off the clothing item.
Discount, well done.
Like in a survey, sometimes you get the results saying like 50% people.
Yeah, in surveys, 70% of people prefer whatever, yes. Anything else? Think financial things. Oren.
There's a new thing that they've added on is like how much percent of items are using that food product.
Very good, yes. So, for instance, in a bid to help people eat more healthily, they might say, you know, 0% fat in your yogurt or whatever, or 10% of sugar in your muesli bar or whatever. Yeah.
Statistics, like on the radio at the moment, there's that one that goes, let's go for 4% wastage or whatever.
Very good, yes.
Like because like this year they would have made like 21% profit as well.
Excellent, profit. Well done, profit. The other thing, when you grow up and have your own job and you want to buy a house or get a credit card, the interest rate on your mortgage and on your credit card has a big impact on whether you want to choose it or not. So, for instance, mortgages at the moment are sitting at around, a very good one is in the 3s and then some are around 5%. That means that the bank lends you the money to buy the house, but you pay back 3.5% per annum of that amount, not 3.5% overall. So what that really means is if you get a 30-year mortgage and you are paying, say, 5% a year on it, over that 30 years, you're going to pay an awful lot of interest, which is why they always say it's really good to pay off your mortgage as quickly as possible, because you're then reducing the interest payments. The other thing that interest payments are credit cards. Now, does anyone know how credit cards work? Yep, Gareth.
Basically, you get money from the bank from that, but you've got to actually pay it back. So, if you don't pay it back in time, then you get interest.
Absolutely, great. So what a credit card is, you know, you have a debit card. So who's got a debit card in this class? Yeah. So when you spend something on your debit card, it immediately debits, that means is taken out of your bank account. When you spend money on a credit card, it's not taken out of your bank account. So what the banks like to do is give people kind of bigger credit limits, and it's actually quite irresponsible because it encourages people to spend more money than they've got. Now, credit cards are fine if you pay the money back every month. So the rule is if you get a credit card, never put something on a credit card that you don't have the money to pay for. Because if you can't pay the money back at the end of the 2 months, just like Gareth said, you'll be hit with an interest charge. And credit card interest can be anything from sort of 15 to 29, 30%, which is a huge chunk of interest, okay? So really, the banks don't like customers like me, because I have a credit card and I use it. I put everything on the credit card, but I pay it off every month, so I don't have to pay any interest.
What's the point of a credit card then?
Because what the point of the credit card is a very good question. What I do, I have a bank account that earns interest. So I leave the money, because you get a credit card bill every 2 months. So the money that I'm spending is sitting in my account earning interest for me while I pay things on the credit card, and then I pay off the credit card at the end. That's why credit cards, you've got to be very careful with them, though. Very careful. Yes.
With the credit card, so like, would it be something was on sale, but you don't have the money back then, but you know you're going to have a paycheck at the end of the week? That's a good question. Corfi said, is it that, you know, you really want something, it's on sale, but you know you're not going to be paid till the end of the month or something?
that is great if you know that when you are paid at the end of the month, you will have enough spare income to pay off the credit card bill. So it's people get into, you might have seen it on the television, you know, My Budget, you know, the lady who says, imagine never having to worry about money. Do you know that advert? And there's a girl on there who says, you know, I had $25,000 of credit card debt and it took her 2 years to pay it off, you know, so they're great if you use them properly. My one gets me points as well. You know, you can get air miles and things. So if you get the right credit card, you can make it work for you, not the other way round. Debit cards are always safer because if you go to buy something with your debit card and there's not enough money in your account, what happens? It's declined, that's right. So that's, what you have to do, you have to know your own sort of financial personality. I've got 3 kids and all 3 of mine are very different. One of them wouldn't spend money if his life depended on it, you know, because he likes to save it in his account and likes to see the amount going up and up and up. And the other one, like money, whatever. Okay, stop there then.